The Great Depression was a time of great suffering. It started in 1929 and lasted for a decade. The stock market crashed and millions of Americans lost their jobs and homes. It was the worst economic downturn in modern history. The Depression had a profound impact on American society. It led to widespread poverty, hunger, and homelessness. It also shook people's faith in capitalism and democracy. Many people blamed the government for not doing enough to help. The Great Depression is a reminder that economic prosperity is not guaranteed. It's also a reminder of the importance of government intervention in times of crisis. The lessons learned from the Great Depression help to shape the modern world. There were many factors that contributed to the Great Depression. One factor was the stock market crash of 1929. The stock market had been booming for several years, but it was a bubble built on speculation and borrowed money. On Black Tuesday, October 29, 1929, the bubble burst. Stock prices plummeted, and investors lost billions of dollars. Another factor was the unequal distribution of wealth. In the 1920s, the richest 1% of Americans controlled over 30% of the nation's wealth. This meant that the vast majority of Americans had very little money to spend, which hurt the economy. Overproduction in agriculture and industry also played a role. Farmers were producing more food than people could eat, and factories were producing more goods than people could buy. This led to falling prices and job losses. Finally, the Federal Reserve made a series of mistakes that worsened the Depression. The Fed raised interest rates in an attempt to curb speculation, but this only served to further contract the economy. The stock market crash of 1929, known as Black Tuesday, marked the beginning of the Great Depression. It sent shockwaves through the American economy and around the world. Banks failed, businesses closed, and unemployment soared. As if the economic crisis wasn't enough, a natural disaster struck the American heartland. The Dust Bowl was a severe drought that devastated the Great Plains in the 1930s. Years of unsustainable farming practices left the soil depleted and exposed. The winds picked up the dry topsoil, creating massive dust storms that blackened the sky and buried homes and farms. Millions of acres of farmland were destroyed, forcing many farmers to abandon their land and migrate westward in search of work and a better life. Section 4. The Great Depression's impact. The Great Depression had a devastating impact on American society. Millions of people lost their jobs, homes, and savings. Unemployment reached a staggering 25%, and those fortunate enough to have jobs faced wage cuts and reduced hours. Families struggled to put food on the table, and bread lines and soup kitchens became commonplace in cities across the country. Many people were forced to live in shanty towns, derisively nicknamed Hoovervilles after President Herbert Hoover, who many blamed for the Depression. The Depression also took a toll on people's mental and emotional well-being. Rates of suicide, alcoholism, and domestic violence rose sharply. The social fabric of America was strained as people struggled to cope with the hardships of the time. The American dream seemed out of reach for many. Section 5. A New Deal. In 1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected president on a promise of a new deal for the American people. Roosevelt's New Deal was a series of programs and reforms designed to provide relief, recovery, and reform to the battered economy and society. The New Deal brought about significant changes. Programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration put millions of Americans back to work building roads, bridges, parks, and other public works projects. Social Security, a landmark program, was established to provide a safety net for the elderly, unemployed, and disabled. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation was created to insure bank deposits, restoring confidence in the banking system. Section 6. Lessons from the Abyss. The Great Depression was a time of immense hardship and uncertainty, but it also taught valuable lessons about the importance of economic stability, social safety nets, and government intervention. It highlighted the dangers of income inequality, unchecked speculation, and unsustainable economic practices. It showed how interconnected the global economy is and how events in one part of the world can have ripple effects elsewhere. The legacy of the New Deal and the lessons learned from the Great Depression continue to shape economic policies and social programs today. They serve as a reminder of the importance of responsible regulation, social safety nets, and government intervention in times of crisis. The Great Depression stands as a stark reminder that economic prosperity is not a given. It must be carefully nurtured and protected.